Welcome to Rolling Reflections, where we reflect after rolling. This is specific to Jiu-Jitsu. This is specific to after a class, after a session, after a competition. This very vital piece of my own journey, which is reflection, which is looking at what we just did, looking what I just did, and extrapolating some meaning from it, taking away a lesson and gaining better understanding. Because if we're just going to go on this journey and not reflect on it, it's hard to know where we're getting sidetracked a little bit or where we're surging forward. So today's reflection is going to be centered around longevity, how we go about engaging in ways that, we maybe didn't do in a healthy way and maybe an injurious way. This is life lesson as well, but it's how do you, go in and not hurt yourself and maybe some other things. Today I went to all levels. This is a first all levels class I've been to in a long time, which usually I'm in fundamentals, and I think that's really important to start out and learn the fundamentals. And I think fundamentals can take you a long way in this sport, because if you have control and you gain expertise in the positions of jiu-jitsu, that's going to take you a long way. I still have a long way to go with that fundamental journey, but I wanted to try a different class. I didn't go on Monday because I was on the tail end of kind of this feeling of low-level sick. I never was really sick, but for a couple weeks there was, some off and on days where I just felt like something was off. Not sickness, but it could have been allergies, could have been something in the air. I don't know, but I just took it easy and decided Monday fundamentals was going to be an off day, because I wanted to give my body a chance to rest, recover, do what it needed to do so that I could, come back strong whenever. Otherwise, maybe I went on Monday and I'm not sick, but I damaged my body because I wasn't ready. And then I am out for a week and I'm just done with that because I've done that. So today decided to go to all levels. And I have a friend, he's a black belt named Paul, and he was going to, and, said, hey, I'd like to partner with you and, help you through things and coach you. And I appreciate that because I need those relationships. So it was a really great class. It was the tail end of a series of sweeps and passing guard in a certain way. So I got this little baptism by fire and got to try all the techniques that they had been learning over the last 3 or 4 weeks. And Paul was very helpful because he knew the techniques and could, help me learn through them. Not that I nailed them, but I got it to a degree. And when it came to open rolling at the end, you do 5-minute rounds and you switch in partners. And the coach, Andy, black belt, was saying, do 3 rounds and 1 more than you feel comfortable doing. And I felt that comment is a good one. It's the nature of stretching yourself, but how do you know when you're stretching yourself versus when you're just uncomfortable and you really could go 1 more, maybe even 1 more after that, and maybe 1 more after that? How do you know? And what came up to me was 2 things, because it happened. I did 3, and my 3rd round was my 1 more than I think I could do round. The 2nd round, at the end of that, I was like, okay, I would probably stop now because I've got to protect my joints, my tendons, and things like that. And I've had too many moments where that stuff has hindered me to be able to go back the next day. And I'm not in that place right now, but my mindset is still there. So this is the first push. Go the 3rd round. Go for 3. And my last round, my 3rd round, was very difficult. The vomit feeling was very real. The fatigue was really there, but I gave it what I had and went the 5 minutes and ended and knew that was it for me. And the first reason was, I was about to throw up, and I know that some people will push through that and will throw up. I'm not interested in that. I know what I'm trying to do, and I know that's not a thing I'm willing to go do intentionally. It might happen someday, but I was aware of it enough that I was like, no, this is a line for me, and I'm okay right now, but I'm exhausted. It was a very scrambling round with a wrestler, and those are very, very anaerobic situations. So it's personal. It's up to you. That's number one. You have to set a standard or a boundary of what you're not willing to do, and then accept that boundary as the line in the sand and assess if you can go a little bit further. Now, I'm talking for me, a little bit further is another 5-minute round. So that's a little bit more of a commitment. And the reality is I could still go. Okay. So that's number one. I get that. I'm pushing up against my boundary. I could go further because it's nothing is physically maybe wrong. There isn't actual vomit flying from my mouth. There isn't a pain in my ankle or my arm or where it's really starting to flare up and I know there's a problem. I'm dizzy, whatever. I'm not in that state maybe. So I can go and it's going to be weak. And there's benefit in that. The benefit being you're not going to get, if you go with a certain partner, they might not care and just destroy you, but other partners might understand that and say, oh, okay, this is going to be a little bit of a lighter round. Usually that's when you get with an upper belt who understands and they'll push you and they're smart about it. So if that's not the case, which wasn't for me, I go to phase 2. What am I looking at? In this case, I just talked about not feeling pain, but in this situation, this reality, I wasn't willing to go any further because that third match, that third round, I got my neck in some situations that were not good for me. That could cause huge problems because I'm almost 40. In a month, I'll be 40. I have had cervical neck herniations. My back is not great from the Army. So I need to accept that and embrace that reality. Otherwise, I might lose this sport. And when I got put in this certain submission on the third round, I tapped to it because it was stretched and half Nelson and it cranked on my neck and I felt it and heard it crunch. Maybe it was nothing, but if it's in my neck, I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm out. Okay. Not that the person did anything wrong. Absolutely not. He was great. He did a really good job. It's just, I have to protect that about myself. Again, it's a boundary for me. This isn't a standard. You have to decide what these are for yourself. So my reflection is I can push and go easy and just kind of get through it and just get my body used to it if and only if I'm not getting my tendon flare-ups, I'm not seeing stars, I'm not feeling dizzy, my headache isn't, going crazy, my neck isn't in a stressed out position, my low back isn't, like my knee isn't on fire. There are certain injuries I have that can't flare up because it's not worth it to me. So I did not go to a fourth round. And that was the decision that was best for me. So ended up being that my third round was my one more than I'm comfortable doing. And that was fine for me. And do I feel bad about it? Yeah, it still feels weird walking off at 3 and not going to a fourth. Now, Paul, I rolled with him for the first round. That was wonderful because, again, when you go with upper belts and they're helping you, they're not trying to dominate you. Because I'm sure if you turn up the heat, they might play that game too. And if they're deciding to work on something, they might put it on you. But Paul did a really good job of giving me looks whenever we were in the situation where we had just been learning about this pass. And so I kind of froze there. I'm still a white belt brain thinking. And oh man, it's like you recognize, you see, and then you think, and then you act, or you freeze. And so I froze and then I acted and I did it, the first step. And then I blanked on what to do in the other. And, he gave me seconds and then he made me pay for it, So I feel that's very appropriate. That's a great way to learn. You get a little window that's longer than normal to do the technique. And then they'll, all right, moving on, and I felt good about that. And the reflection on that specifically is I saw it. And being able to see it, being aware that you are seeing it, maybe you can't act on it yet, but you're aware of it. That's huge progress. And this is life too. I have been on this journey for a long time. My modern myth is where I talk deeper about that part of my journey. But one thing I will say that I say often is when I coached people, they would beat themselves up. I beat myself up for the same thing. Oh man, I lost my temper again. Oh man, I went to anxiety, got depressed, and I didn't see it coming. And I always tell them, but you see it after the fact. You are aware. You're telling me that you caught it too late and there was nothing you could do about it. But what we have to start doing to stack these blessing moments is acknowledge that we saw it. Acknowledge our vision is shifting. And that is the first step of progress. We can't just get it. Like, it's just not going to happen. Like, oh, no, I'm very zen and I will never be angry again. Like, that's not a thing. And if we think it is, then we're going to suffer unnecessarily, which all suffering is unnecessary. Pain is unavoidable. Suffering is avoidable. Suffering is just believing you have no say in it. You have no ability, no power to change anything. You are just going to be in pain for the rest of your life. So acknowledging that you see something, you're aware of something is powerful. And it was today, because I'm taking that reflection and saying that's a win, even though I want to be the best at everything I do. That's not realistic. So the step down process is getting to that level of saying, hey, I saw it. Okay, awesome. And the thing that I talked to Paul about after all that was done is that he was going to stop at 3-2, and then our coach called him to go one more with him. So it was his fourth one. Then he ended up doing 4 more after that. So he did 8. He was able to, keep himself in a healthy position, I'm assuming, and keep going. And he's a black belt, so he probably, knows his body pretty well and can make that choice for himself. I wouldn't doubt his decision making. And a coach is going to see someone that they've been with a long time and know what they're capable of and what's good for them, probably to, pull it out of them. I know that I want to be better. I know that I want to get better, but I also know through this experience that I have to be smart about it, because I know my body. Tomorrow I'm going to talk to my doctor about physical therapy and get that stuff checked out, because I'm not trying to stop doing jiu-jitsu, but I'm not trying to put myself in a position to hurt myself either. And the last thing that I'll say about this reflection is I'm proud of myself for recognizing that fire that's in me that makes me want to be 25 years old and ignore everything for one night and then have to bail for a week or two because I went too hard. And I think the reflection there, the powerful one, is when we grow, when we're wounded, when we're injured, and whether it's physical or emotional, there is this recovery process, right? Like, we have to rehab the body, we have to rehab the heart, we have to process, we have to grieve, whatever it is. And then we have to re-enter the arena, in the environment, in some capacity, expose ourselves to it. And then we find out if we've made progress or not. Sometimes we walk home with our tail tucked between our legs, and sometimes we walk back victorious. Tonight was one of those more victorious feeling things for me, where I felt the drive to go harder and I pulled back. And I've got use of my hands. My tendonitis is not flared up. My neck hurts. I have a headache. Back hurts. There is pain. But these are not stop you pains. These are not I can't drive home pains. And that's what I used to get. So this is a victory for me. Even though I still had the drive and the desire to go harder, I was able to stop. I was able to hold back and not tell myself a negative story about how I'm dishonoring people and how people will look down on me and judge me because I'm not trying as hard as everybody else. All of those stories are not valid. They are simply stories. And we are the storytellers of our own life story. We decide what is and isn't for us. And we need to be the ones who take the invitation to push beyond our comfort zone and take it, but also recognize where that boundary is and how we push just beyond it. And when we do push beyond it, and we do have to recover and heal and grow, we then have to expose ourselves to that same stimulus to show ourselves that we've grown, or to be made aware that we haven't, that we have more work to do, but not to jump into that, not to just throw ourselves back into the pit. For me, being sober, it was walking through a Target or a Quick Trip or a gas station that had liquor, that had beer, and walking past it and feeling the anxiety, feeling the desire. And as that faded, I realized I was overcoming it. But I wouldn't have known that or maybe even developed that if I never exposed myself to it. But I didn't go to the bar. I didn't go to the house party where everyone's drunk to test it. I did it in measured steps that were very safe. So this reflection is a reminder of that it applies to jiu-jitsu and so many other areas of our life. If we just go diving in, we're going to hurt ourselves, burn out, and quit for the wrong reason. And what we need to do is make sure we're saying yes and no for the right reason to the right thing. And this is all a process of reflection. These rolling reflections are all about that and all of the different ways that truth manifests. And we have an unlimited amount of experiences to reflect on in an empowered way. Sure, we can do it in a disempowered way too. And I know I have. And maybe it's funny. Maybe people laugh and say like this reflecting thing is silly, but it's training a muscle just like drilling in jiu-jitsu. Sometimes I might not even believe it, or it might feel like heavy to do. But I find something and it's authentic and it always hits and it always matters to me. And there is power in reinforcing through repetition things that matter, things that help us, even at the times where we initially don't think it will. This is that time. It's important to me. And I think so many people can benefit from reflecting and finding that empowered story that was told or offered to us through the training that we find in jiu-jitsu and in life. So until next time, journey well, my friends.